Since the dawn of humanity, each nation possesses its own cultural, artistic, and religious heritage. These elements shape the history and distinctive identity of each ethnic group. However, all of these would be meaningless if a country lacked a strong military force to defend itself against hostile forces. At that time, most people lived on continents rather than in the oceans. Therefore, the military strength of each nation was often assessed based on the power of their land forces that they possessed. The concept of land forces is a term used to refer to professional military personnel, organized and equipped to engage in ground combat operations. A formidable ground force also allows more powerful nations to control the territories they occupy. This is particularly challenging if relying solely on naval forces or, at the present time, on air forces. The clearest evidence is in the year 221 BCE. When this emperor, he was Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of the Qin dynasty, held absolute power. He built an extremely powerful ground force, conquering numerous new territories and expanding the boundaries, unifying the entire Chinese continent. Thus, we understand why land forces play a crucial role in the military strength of each nation. So, let's see which ground forces have ever dominated the battlefields worldwide. The most famous in this list is likely the Roman Empire's ground forces. This army became renowned throughout centuries of history. On screen is the emperor who established one of the greatest empires of all time. I say so because he founded the Roman Empire's ground forces in its early period. He helped this force quickly become a pillar that later Roman kings took as a model throughout the primitive era. From 30 BC to 284 BCE. Under the skillful command and coordination of Augustus, the Roman ground forces gradually formed, with an initial establishment of about 5,000 infantry annually, recruited from pure Roman citizens. They were professional soldiers volunteering for 25 years of service, with the primary mission to safeguard absolute peace for Rome. The main advantages of the Roman ground forces lie in their strict discipline, resilience, and durability, enabling continuous warfare in all weather and challenging terrains. And they always had a fervent spirit to serve the empire. Participating in prolonged battles, the Roman ground forces often flexibly applied various tactical formations. The most typical example is the use of the maniple formation, where pairs of soldiers in the front line fought for a period, and then, fatigued, the captain signaled for them to withdraw to the rear line, while the second line stepped forward to continue the fight. In addition, the Roman army in general, and the ground forces in particular, had many ways to encourage soldiers to fight. For impoverished soldiers, victory in war would bring them land and money. For nobly born soldiers, victory would reinforce their existing privileges, elevate their status, and help them become increasingly wealthy. With a considerably strong ground force compared to the rest of the world, in about 300 years, Rome expanded from a power in the Italian region to become an empire dominating the entire Mediterranean and surrounding regions. It is renowned in history as one of the most powerful empires of human history. It can be said that the Roman ground forces during their dominance, despite having certain weaknesses, truly had no adversary capable of standing equal to them. Temporarily leaving the ancient continents, let's go to Asia in the year 1206. The Mongol Empire. They conquered across Asia and Europe for over 100 years. They defeated armies dozens or even hundreds of times their size. They seemed unstoppable. Their footsteps marked the end for many powerful civilizations. Under the leadership of Genghis Khan, the Mongols possessed an immensely powerful ground force, including both infantry and cavalry. Their greatest strength was mobility and endurance. The nomadic lifestyle of the Mongols allowed them to mobilize large armies to traverse incredible distances in a remarkably short time. During their movements, the Mongols could live off livestock herds and even the horses they rode. Indeed, beyond their adept combat skills and high mobility, the Mongol ground forces heavily relied on cavalry. Each cavalryman usually raised 3 to 4 horses to constantly move over long distances. Strict discipline and mobility from the cavalry force helped the Mongol ground forces develop many innovative tactics, including surprise attacks and withdrawals, a primitive form of later blitzkrieg warfare. Additionally, this ground force often employed terror tactics, deliberately causing significant damage and casualties, such as massacres or looting, to break the resistance spirit of the opposing side. In summary, the Mongol ground forces were one of the strongest ground forces in history, fully equipped, well-organized, enduring fighting spirit, and above all, led by one of the most renowned generals of all time, Genghis Khan. Also in Asia, and existing for over 624 years from 1299 to 1923. The Ottoman Empire was one of the most powerful and long-lasting empires in human history. Certainly, like other empires, for success, the Ottoman Empire had to possess an extremely powerful ground force. According to legend, one night, Osman, the first ruler of the Ottoman kingdom, dreamed of a crescent moon crossing the sky from east to west, illuminating the entire world. The king believed this was a sign that the empire he built would become a great empire. The Ottomans also believed that Osman I was the chosen one with the ability to build a mighty empire. Meeting the people's expectations, the king then chose the crescent moon as the symbol for the Ottoman Empire flag. Simultaneously, he launched ruthless conquests across continents. This empire rapidly developed its ground forces into an invincible, resilient, and victorious army. Evidence is that within just 10 years, from a small Ottoman principality, it rose to dominate Asia, Europe, and Africa. The secret behind the Ottoman ground forces' series of victories was their effective use of cannons and firearms against enemies mostly still using primitive weapons. This helped the empire gain a decisive advantage when it was still a young empire. Another important advantage of the Ottomans lay in their effective use of elite infantry units, called janissaries. These warriors were trained to go to the battlefield from a very young age, being both extremely loyal and formidable. Recent studies on Ottoman archival data have shown that, at the height of this empire, they had about 80,000 ground troops, including 5,000 to 10,000 elite janissary soldiers, along with thousands of Christian soldiers, especially 1,500 Serbian cavalry. After World War I ended, the Ottoman Empire also disintegrated, and their once powerful ground forces became a thing of the past. It was thought that there would never be a military force capable of shaking the world again. But Hitler disagreed with that. Since the beginning of World War II, the German Wehrmacht, or the Heer in German, shocked both Europe and the world by quickly occupying a series of countries in Central and Western Europe in just a few months. There were times when the Third Reich's ground forces were so strong that it was believed they had conquered the entire vast Soviet Union, and only divine intervention could stop the advance of this formidable army. To have such a powerful ground force, Hitler tried to structure his army from various military groups. With a total of about 13.6 million battle-hardened soldiers, including volunteers and conscripts before the outbreak of the war. In addition, the German ground forces were able to achieve major successes by successfully applying a new concept called blitzkrieg. This form of warfare used advanced weapon technology, communication, combined with the element of surprise, as well as concentrated forces to create a terrifying effect. Specifically, mechanized infantry units equipped with armored vehicles and air support. Then focused on launching fast defensive thrusts to break through the opponent's defense quickly, and then encircle and annihilate the enemy completely in a short period, thereby giving the opponent no chance to reorganize their forces. To carry out such blitzkrieg attacks, the German ground forces had to be extremely disciplined, tightly organized, and meticulously trained. This made them superior to the US and other Western allies. Historian Henry Robert once commented as follows: "From German soldiers to their generals, they all surpass the British, Americans, and even the Russians in both offense and defense." But a prominent factor throughout World War II is discipline. However, despite being very powerful, the German ground forces eventually suffered defeat due to strategic miscalculations, as well as Germany's severe shortage of both manpower and resources. But regardless, they are still considered one of the most powerful ground forces in human history, spreading terror across continents. One of the craziest plans ever executed by the Third Reich's ground forces that contributed to hastening their defeat was the Barbarossa campaign targeting the Soviet Union. In this campaign, Hitler was confident that his battle-hardened ground forces could quickly defeat the defensive lines of the Red Army, thereby swiftly capturing Moscow to break the resistance of the entire people of the Soviet Union. However, Germany could not achieve that, as they faced fierce resistance from the Soviet Red Army. Not only in this campaign, but throughout World War II. The significant victories of the Soviet military, such as the Battle of Stalingrad, also had a massive contribution from the ground forces. At this time, alongside the German ground forces, the Red Army was also considered a very powerful military force, thanks to the enormous scale of the Soviet Union in terms of territory, population, and industrial resources. Due to the vast resources, the Soviet ground forces always ensured strong defensive forces in both the rear and the front lines. At that time, the Soviet ground forces had millions of soldiers, allocated to 16 military districts, including tank divisions, mechanized divisions, and infantry divisions, as well as various other support arms. Among them, the most formidable were the 50 armored divisions, with over 50,000 various tanks, completely overwhelming the numerical superiority of the German ground forces and dozens of other mid-sized countries. Not only that, if the German ground forces were famous for disciplined battle readiness, then the Soviet ground forces possessed enduring combat spirit, burning patriotism, and an overwhelming desire for victory. In addition, they were commanded by talented generals like Zhukov, making the power of the Soviet ground forces no less than that of the German warriors. However, despite being powerful, the Soviet ground forces also suffered heavy losses in the war with the Germans, especially throughout World War II in general. Historian Richard Evans, an expert on Nazi Germany, once explained that, according to Soviet estimates alone, the Red Army suffered total losses of over 11 million soldiers, over 100,000 aircraft, over 300,000 artillery pieces, and nearly 100,000 tanks and self-propelled guns. Some other sources give even higher figures for military personnel losses, possibly up to 26 million soldiers. After the end of the most brutal war in human history, the Soviet Union entered a new tense period in the Cold War. At this time, they still maintained a formidable ground force to ensure the security of the country against the Western threat, especially from the United States. Speaking of the United States, it is a country with the world's top military capability that almost everyone recognizes. In particular, their ground forces have been present in nearly every hotspot around the globe, engaging in many fierce battles throughout human history. The U.S. Army was established on June 14, 1775, based on constitutional provisions, and is the largest branch of the U.S. Armed Forces tasked with conducting military operations on land. Over 245 years of building and development, the U.S. Army has become a backbone force in the U.S. military structure for all global military campaigns. During its development, there were very few times when the U.S. Army was concentrated in large numbers, as the U.S. Constitution only required Congress to establish and maintain a standing navy, and only allowed the concentration of ground forces in large numbers when necessary. The U.S. continued this model until the end of World War II. During that period, they formed large-scale ground forces. And when the war ended, the U.S. military quickly reduced the organizational strength of these ground forces. Since the early 20th century, the U.S. military has maintained highly effective combat capabilities, as evidenced by the fact that its ground forces participated in a series of battles in World War I and II, contributing significantly to tilting the advantage towards the Allies. Or in later periods, the U.S. ground forces also successfully dismantled Saddam Hussein's army in Kuwait in 1991, as well as in Iraq in 2003. The strength of the U.S. ground forces lies in their ability to deploy a large force quickly and efficiently when reassembly orders are given. Compared to numerically larger forces like the Soviet Union or China, the success of the U.S. ground forces is mainly based on strict training and a technological advantage. Moreover, the U.S. military is reinforced by the world's strongest air and naval forces. The U.S. Army usually does not go directly into battle, but waits for the air or naval forces to explore, bomb, and destroy the enemy thoroughly before entering the battlefield. This minimizes casualties and increases efficiency when this force engages in any battle. This force also has a considerable military budget to maintain and upgrade a variety of equipment, such as combat vehicles, all types of aircraft. The most common vehicle in the U.S. Army is the Humvee, able to serve roles such as troop transport, supply, weapon carrier, and ambulance. As for tanks, the M102 Abrams is the main battle tank of the ground forces, while the M203 Bradley serves as the standard infantry fighting vehicle, along with various military vehicles like the M3 cavalry fighting vehicle, M113 armored personnel carrier, Every U.S. infantry soldier is fully equipped from head to toe, both materially and mentally. As a ground force, the U.S. Army, however, also possesses a large number of aircraft in its arsenal, notably the A-60 Apache attack helicopter, or the heavy lift transport helicopter CH-47 Chinook. As of now, the U.S. ground forces are supported by approximately 4,948 aircraft. This number is much higher than the combined air forces of dozens of other countries. In recent years, the U.S. Army has around 475,000 troops, including 342,000 soldiers in the National Guard, and approximately 198,000 ready-to-deploy reserve forces. Taking into account all other branches within the U.S. Army, the total force could be close to 1 million troops stationed at hundreds of bases worldwide. The story of the U.S. Army just now concludes the discussion about the most powerful military forces of today. What, in your opinion, is truly the strongest ground force? Please leave your comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to catch the latest videos from 5 Seconds Unfiltered. For now, goodbye and see you again.